The things that are happening in the world on this particular day, and we're going to give a rundown on some of them. And actually, one of them may be needing the services of Nick Palveda, but we're going to find out if he's available for said services or not. But that is one of the items that I was going to get to, and all along those lines. And in a minute, I'll tell what that is, and we'll see if Nick is available or not in that particular case. But definitely, there was a massive missile attack on the Ukrainian city of Kryvyi, and that is actually the Ukrainian president's hometown. And apparently the Russian missile attack killed 11 in that particular attack. And so that is one of the things that I am seeing from the Ukrainian situation. Russia is saying that German Leopard tanks and U.S. Bradleys were captured in the U.S. as well. So like I said, there are a lot of things going as we are going into day 475 of that particular war. And, you know, there's this nightmarish situation that we see in movies sometimes, but apparently it actually happened in South America, in the country of Ecuador. But an Ecuadorian woman was revived at her wake after being declared dead. So the dead woman was found breathing in a coffin and all in that space. So apparently, you know, she was knocking on the door of that particular situation, knocking on the door, I guess, of that coffin and letting folks know, hey, wait a minute, I'm not ready to leave this planet. I'm actually still here. So we have to find out what happened in that case that caused her to be actually almost buried alive and in that kind of space. So that was an unusual story that I saw in that way. And Mexico City's Jewish mayor has apparently resigned to enter the 224 presidential race. So that's right, Mexico to elect its first female president, Mayor Claudio Sheinbaum, resigned in order to run for president in that particular country. And she is also one of the top diplomats in that particular country as well. And the Peoria Air National Guard members are deploying to Germany for NATO exercises. So that is something that is going on in the world news as well. So there's definitely a lot of things happening around the world. Thousands were evacuated as a Mayon volcano spewed rocks and toxic gas in the Philippines. So that is something that we're seeing in terms of nature and all in that kind of space. And at least 46, including children, were killed in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So that is something that is going on in the African nation over there. And definitely dozens were being internally displaced in that kind of space. So that is something that we're seeing is a world news item and all of that. And in Australia, an Australian bus crash was going on as the bus driver is facing charges in a crash that killed 10 wedding guests, and he was denied bail in Australia. And let me get to some other news of what is going on in the world. By the way, Londoners are reacting to Boris Johnson's resignation from the parliament. So that is to see what is happening. So there's actually been 2 folks that have resigned in that area. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the politics of the UK, because now we have had both Boris Johnson and Nicola Sturgeon that are out of United Kingdom politics, at least at this particular moment, and all along those lines. So I did say that I was going to get the, let me get to one more international story. The woman who took the abortion pill after the UK term limits was sentenced to 28 months. So that is something else that we are seeing from the international political scene and all of that. And the Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi, is visiting Venezuela. So we're going to see what happens when those 2 countries go and meet each other as well. And like I said, I was going to get to some U.S. news, and this is where I was going to give Nick Palveda a hard time and all along those lines, because apparently, and this is something that there's definitely those federal indictment charges that are going around and all in that space. So we're going to get to some other items of interest, including I do want to give a congratulations to the Denver Nuggets for winning their championship. That's right, they pulled it off 4-1, and the Joker as well as Jamal Murray now have championship rings. If Sasha comes on, he may be glad to know that Jamal Murray actually started his basketball playing career in Canada. And of course, the Joker is Serbian by nature and all in that kind of space. But this thing that I was going to get to and find out if Nick is available is that apparently Trump is having a hard time finding a lawyer for his federal court appearance and all of that. So he has actually been scrambling to find a lawyer for his court appearance in Mar-a-Lago. And I do know that while he may not be practicing that type of law, that Nick is a lawyer by trade. So Nick, that's what I was going to wonder to know when I saw this news story. Are you available should Mr. Trump be wanting to call on you and see if you can be his lawyer and all of that? Because definitely he apparently was scrambling for a lawyer when he came down there, and he is facing those federal charges on this particular day. So he was scrambling to find a lawyer, and I just wanted to know, since you are a lawyer, I know that also Dan Worthington, who may be joining us as well, is a lawyer as well. So I was just wanting to know if you were available and all in that kind of space, since it does look like he has been scrambling to find a lawyer and all in that kind of way. So Nick, are you available?
Technically, I'm actually admitted to practice in the state of Florida. So I'm a member of the Florida bar. So technically, yes, I could represent the Donald Trump. In reality, I shy away from litigation and try to keep my clients out of court. The job is to keep away from court. Of course, with him, he could probably be a very difficult client. But again, that's, he's got some issues. Let's put that way on how he handles the cases. So I think he'd be better represented by someone else. Now, if he can't afford an attorney, remember, this is a criminal complaint. A public defender will be appointed for him, and you never know about Don. Okay, so maybe he can't afford a lawyer and he needs to go to a public defender. But something tells me he'll find somebody to represent him, because it looks like all he's going to do is plead not guilty. He'll go out, plead not guilty. But then let me tell you something. It is a lot of work. I mean, it's not like, hey, you show up and you win a case. You show up and it's a dog. He's right at one thing. It is going to be a dog fight. It's not easy. And he's also right. You got to throw a lot of punches, all different directions. Personally, I think that it would have been better off not to bring the charges and just let Donald die a natural death in obscurity. Okay, seriously, because if this wasn't happening, he wouldn't be in the media. No one would give a rat's rear. He'd be talking about his normal, I lost the election, everything's unfair, blah, blah, blah. People would ignore him and he'd go away. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening. Now he becomes front center of the media, giving him a chance to actually win the election, which right now I gave him like no chance. Win the election and then just pardon himself and go like this to the system. So we'll see what happens. Before I had him down at like 0 probability. Now they're breathing life into the monster. Why, I don't know. They could have easily decided not to press charges, Mark.
They could have definitely done that, but we'll bring in Lee Newton Rhodes and see what he's got to say about this particular situation and all along those lines. And we'll also bring in Toby. I was trying to talk Nick, since he's our boss and all of that, from the Pod TV aspect of things into representing Donald Trump. He's scrambling, trying to find a lawyer and all of that space.
Can I comment on what Nick said? But first, Mark, to what you said about this lady who they found alive during her funeral.
Yes.
If anyone ever asks you what they want to, what you once said about you at your funeral, the first thing you should once said is, "Look, he's still moving."
Yeah.
But Nick, you made a comment about bringing cases to trial that you prefer not to do that. Yeah. Is that an expense of a client who truly believes he's innocent? He should take a plea versus go to trial?
No, I didn't say that. You try to keep them out of court way before the charges are brought. Okay, now once charges are brought, like and now you're in the dogfight. The dogfight's a different cat, and so the last.
What control does a person have over having charges brought or not? If the prosecutor brings a case to the grand jury, you're not part of that procedure.
You'd be surprised how much. I actually wrote a whole book on this, Lee, that I didn't really press too hard. It's called Washington Lawyers, about a case I took all the way to the United States Supreme Court. You'd be surprised how much stuff goes on behind the scenes. In other words, even though the prosecuting attorney is impaneling a grand jury, he could have sent attorneys over to the prosecuting attorney, plead the case prior to even going in front of the grand jury. There's a lot of stuff he could have done but didn't, and let it proceed. But I think also that to a certain extent, yes, it is politically motivated. I'm sorry. In other words, there's a lot of ticky-tack laws that are out there that could be enforced. The latest one, which is quite interesting, is Joe Biden putting a gay flag in between and higher than the U.S. flags. And now some people deny it, but hey, look, if you go look at what he did, it's a technical violation of federal law. Now, if you read the law further, there's no consequences to it, which is really weird, but it is a violation. And so you have stuff like that out there. And why isn't there outrage about Joe Biden putting the gay flags front and center before the U.S. flags? I think it's an issue. And the thing is, but Trump's everybody because of what he does. So he's taking front and center stage. It will help him, oddly enough, in the election. And so as much as because now he's getting publicity, he'll get donors because of it. He'll get a lot of people that, even myself, I have one case right now that's in federal court that is really the wrath of it is Joe Biden's extremely huge. I'm going to spend a lot of money on worthless litigation, harassing small clients, so even I get turned off by the Democratic agenda of basically punishing middle class people.
Nick, why do you think it's getting so hard for him to get attorneys to represent him?
Because, well, a couple reasons. A, he doesn't tell the truth, which is really hard because you got to, you're dealing with a client that doesn't tell the truth. Then B, he doesn't pay, or he has a tendency to stiff people. So he's got this history behind him of not telling the truth and stiffing people.
Is there a seed that the government goes after these attorneys?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is high quality law firms generally don't engage in criminal work, Lee. In other words, when I started practice back in 1984, we had two things we weren't going to work in. One, domestic relations, because that's sloppy. Or in other words, it's all he said, she said work. Yeah. Two, we weren't going to do criminal law because that's slop work. So the big firms, the Ropes and Grays, the Preston Gates and all, they don't deal in criminal work. It's usually delegated to the people that are desperate to take any case. And some of them get really good at Roy Black, who was my law professor in criminal law, who actually defended William Kennedy Smith. He's a good criminal attorney. There's some good criminal attorneys out there.
I mean, there are plenty out there. O.J. Simpson had somebody last week. What's his name? Robert Hansen, the FBI spy. He passed away. I'm sure he had really good representation. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I mean, there's some good. And what he needs to do is get a good criminal defense attorney. I mean, my choice with Roy Black is up in years now, but boy, the guy was good. He was just plain bloody good criminal defense attorney. So he needs to go find some really good South Florida criminal defense attorney. But of course, they're going to want to retain her. This is where Trump's heart of the deal comes in. They're going to want to get paid, and Trump won't want to pay him. He's going to go, well, you get paid because all the publicity you get out of my case, blah, 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 blah. And in a certain extent, he's right. He'll find somebody. Right now, he's at such early stage. All they're going to do is he's just going to plea out, and then you actually have to go to work. And
you'll find somebody. I was, like I said, Sasha, just really quickly, I was trying to talk Nick, since he is a lawyer. If Dan was here, I was going to try to talk Dan into it as well.
Dan's also
the lawyer for Trump, since apparently Trump is scrambling to find a lawyer, and we do know that Nick is a attorney, as is Dan Worthington. So I was trying to talk them into representing him, since he is apparently scrambling to find a attorney and hasn't found one. as of
Okay, another thing, Mark. If he can't find an attorney in Florida, it's like saying I can't find salt water in the Pacific Ocean. I'll tell you why. There's 100,000 licensed attorneys in the state of Florida. 100,000. If he can't find one, it's because he's not looking for one. Maybe he wants to represent himself. I mean, the guy knows everything. So
Nick, is Trump eligible to use a public defender?
Well, yeah, he has to plead he's indigent. I thought about that too. Okay, in other words, he's got to show that he has no assets, no money, no income.
Because there is no retainers, there is nothing. You just
But come on, there's 100,000. I mean, I got to pay my bar dues. Now that you mentioned, my bar dues haven't gone up in 10 years, or maybe since I started practice. I'm going, how could they not raise the dues? Well, they keep admitting attorneys. When I started, there was 40,000 attorneys in the state of Florida. Today, there's 100,000 lawyers, and a lot of them are in Miami. So he's got like tons of people that are available. So if he can't find one, it's like saying, hey, I went to the Atlantic Ocean. I can't find salt water.
Nick, lately Trump was paying a retainer of $3 million to lawyers to represent him.
Yeah.
You think and he has several lawyers on each of his cases, and the cases are multiplying. So maybe is there a grant designed by Democrats just to financially ruin him?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. In other words, the thing is, I don't think they're going to financially ruin him. And unfortunately, this is almost a backfiring thing that they did. It's just like the indictment when he got impeached. I was against the impeachment. So I said, this isn't going to go anywhere. It's just going to go in his favor. Got impeached twice, left twice. Okay. Now the thing is, when they indicted him, I'm going like, why are they doing this? Because what they're doing is they're giving him huge media coverage throughout the primary, and raising the base because, hey, Sasha, in the United States, there are a lot of people, including myself, who've been abused by the quote system, and they start feeling in favor of Trump. They're all starting going, wait a minute, this guy may have a point because the system, and I'm talking about the government system in the United States, can be very abusive. So he's going to get some mileage out of this. It's not going to go the way the Democrats think. They should have just dropped it, let him die, let the other Republicans sink his ship, and move on. But
that won't.
One second.
That's not going to happen because he controls the base, and then on two, are you saying? I mean, then if we drop it, at what point do we hold people accountable? Because then you're saying that, okay, well, because we're fearful that this could help him politically, we can't hold him accountable, or actually we should allow him to break the law. And then going back to just to point out, one of the biggest things, again, that the Republican Party is great about is their messaging. Right. And that is what the Republican Party does well. The political system, how you pointed out the flag code, for instance, breaking the flag code.
He broke the law.
He didn't.
He did.
How so, Toby?
He didn't.
The problem is the law has no teeth.
No, he legitimately didn't. The flag code says that the flag has to be at the highest point in the center of a group of flags, correct? Right. In the actual photo, the one that the Republicans put out, they posted a photo not showing all the flags.
No, that's what the Democrats pointed out.
No.
I saw that.
No, Ted Lieu is the one who actually.
Okay, Mark, can you just cut and screen share a picture, please, Mark?
I'll see if I can find the picture.
Thank you.
It is. I've got it already.
All right.
Okay, Jacoby's got it
already.
Okay.
So, for example, I'll share both of them. This is the one that the Republicans put out.
Okay.
Saying that he broke the flag code. Pulling it up right now. Let me screen share. Yeah. So this is what the Republicans put out.
Oh, here we go. Let's go take a look at it.
This is what the Republicans put out.
That's the one that I saw. That's the one I saw. Yes.
That does not show all the flags. Okay. So
where's the other one, Jacoby? Where's the other picture?
So this is the one that shows all the flags.
Let's go take a look.
Tell me, where is the center flag? It is on top of the Capitol. It is in the center of all the flags.
Oh, you mean the one way upstairs?
That is all the flags. So therefore, he did not break the flag code by having all the flags there.
You're including the one on top of the building on the flagpole?
That is a group
Oh,
of
the
flags.
one that you can't see on top of
The one you cannot see.
The one that you can see. You're looking directly at.
I don't even know
the
that. That's an
flag on top.
American flag, Jacoby, the way it's printed out.
That is an American flag. It's the one that
Well,
flies.
you can't even see it. What you see is a flagpole and something wrapped
It
around
is a
it.
flag.
Jacoby, do you have a different angle, please?
I think you need to get
Here, I'll zoom in. That is an American flag on top of the Capitol.
Let's say it is. Let's now scroll down below.
Scroll down below.
Okay.
Those are all still part
What
of that
is
flag
that?
group.
Okay. What is that pride flag or whatever that flag is doing in the center?
That flag is in the center.
No. On the bottom. The one that is there, though.
Again,
Jacoby, you know what? You should go defend Trump because
no,
this is
what I'm saying is this is where the messaging from the Republican Party comes into play.
Yeah,
what you got was a cropped piece. It did not show the top flag, which is included in that
I
group
do
of
like
flags.
this, but in spite of it, it should not be in the center.
It's in the group of flags. The center flag is still the American
Jacoby,
flag.
let me ask you this, counselor: is the pride flag in the center?
No, the centerpiece is the top flag right there in the
Where's
middle.
the pride flag? Where is the pride flag?
It's at the bottom of the triangle of flags.
No, you're going to lose that argument, counselor.
No,
Okay.
I'm not.
And the thing is,
the
so
center flag in the group of flags is that top flag right there in the center.
it is
I can bring up
removed and
flag
apart.
code.
Hey, hold on a second, Jacoby and Lee and everything. I just got a question for y'all because, and I don't have a, well, I do have an idea as to where I would fall on this, but this is Pride Month. That's probably what he was doing with a Pride celebration. There are many churches. As a matter of fact, I know that when I catch the public transportation later on today, I will go by a major Methodist church, I think it is, that will have a pride flag on the steps leading up to the congregation. So there are a lot of people that are displaying pride, whether they are members of the church community or other communities. So where is this panel's feeling about pride flags in general? Because like I said, this is Pride Month.
Mark, it's okay. The real problem is it's sitting next to the American flag, and the American
At the
flag
White House.
is prominently displayed in the center, and it's
Is
it,
there.
Jacoby,
Photo.
you're like I said, you're going to lose this argument because
I
the thing is,
disagree.
any
because
third
it's
grader.
prominently in the photo.
Let's go to some third grader to ask which flag is in the center.
Again,
Or fifth grader.
the
excuse
center of the center of the group of flags is still has the American flag at the highest point, correct?
Jacoby, I hear your point, but to the people there,
According to the flag
what is
code,
visible?
according to the flag code, the flag has to be at the center highest point.
Yeah, but it is.
Jacoby,
Yeah,
wait a second, Jacoby. Kim has a question. She's not here. Jacoby, and this question bothers me also. Have we ever put any other flag there besides the United States flag? I've never seen that. This is the first time I've seen a non-United States flag flying at the White House. Have we ever seen a different flag there?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know if that breaks flag code.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does either. I'm just asking the simple question. Is this the first time we've ever flown a non-U.S. flag at the White House?
If it is or if it isn't, then I mean, I'm not sure of the.
I'm not sure either, but I would think that doing some embassy visits and some foreign visits that they have probably flown flags of other countries that are visiting. I would need to check that, but I'm thinking that there have been occasions where other flags have been flown, including even flags from allies. I don't know about necessarily enemies, of course, but definitely allies that have visited. I would think that we have flown their flags when they have visited, but I can double check that.
But again,
Thank you, Mark.
The flag code is the center flag at the highest point. The center flag at the highest point is the U.S. flag.
Okay, so you're telling me the flag to the right of the gay flag or whatever that flag is a U.S. flag, correct?
Yep.
Is it at the highest point?
No.
Case closed. Okay.
Yeah.
so
No. Case closed is Nick. The
You
center
can do it.
flag at the highest point. What flag is in the middle?
No,
What
you're
flag?
like I said, you're going to lose the argument.
No, you're not.
And,
no,
and what
it's
happens
because-
is
no.
that's the reason
no,
you have
no.
a group of fifth graders, aka juries, to
It's
who would-
because you have the Republican Party treating people like different individuals. The thing is, the center
what they're
flag.
doing.
You can
What they're doing is they
you
say,
literally
why,
see the center
why
flag.
isn't the Edie chess flag in the middle? Why don't we have the chess flag in the middle? Okay.
It's whatever flag you put right there where the pride flag is not at the center highest point.
Okay. So I can put my chess flag there.
Yep.
Okay. And why isn't it there?
Because they're not celebrating chess.
Why not?
They're celebrating Pride Month.
Yeah, but why aren't you selling chess month? Talk to me.
That's our chess players oppressed.
Yes, they are.
Our
As a
no,
matter of
they're
fact,
not. No, they're not, Nick. Don't even try that.
Case.
Don't even try
Now
that,
you
Nick.
mentioned it.
Don't even try that, Nick. Don't even think about it. Can you be
I'm
fired
not
for
gonna
being
I'm
a
gonna
chess
cite
player?
you a case, and
Can
I'll
you
send
be
it to
fired
everybody
for being a
read it.
chess player, Nick?
Yeah, I'll send
Can
you
you
the
be executed for being a chess player, Nick?
No,
Can
they
you
get
be
jobs.
jailed for being a chess player, Nick? So
Yeah.
your answer is no to all of them. You cannot
No,
make
no,
that comparison.
I'll give you the case.
Nick,
So you
that
can
is
look
a
it up.
poor comparison. You know that as
look it
well
up.
as I do.
You know, since you need to
A
read.
poor comparison, Nick. Poor comparison.
Here
I
we
want to
go,
say
here we go.
something very interesting. The moment you said the chess players are executed, my stock order was executed at exactly the same moment.
Here you go. Here's a nice case for you to read.
Nick, but I want to ask you honestly. I maybe I missed
Get
something.
the chess
What
player.
is the relationship between this pride flag on the White House and the incredible charges against Trump, including holding the legally the documents and denying subpoena, and all these graphs that the guy is ending up in jail, and you are talking about this flag. Okay, it's a little bit in the
So to
sense.
get back to it,
Tired of talking
the
about Trump.
point was the Republican Party is great at doing the messaging. Hence the reason why the pride flag isn't the center there. I just showed you
Yeah,
one
see, it's
picture.
not in the center, even though it's in
It
the
is
center.
not in the center highest point.
It's not in
Nick.
the center.
It's
Even though
not
Nick,
breaking
Nick,
flag
don't believe
code.
your lying eyes.
It's not breaking flag code, Nick.
Yeah, it's not
You
in the
lost that
center.
one. You lost that one.
Come on.
Here, I'll bring up the flag code to show you center highest point in a group of flags. That is that. That's what
I
the
can't
Republican Party
be-
pushes out.
It sits
I can't
in
be
the center.
seen right now, but it's all about money. They had a rule that stated, only American flags can be flown, but there is a thing that you can choose to have your organization flag flown if you get it approved and pay
At the White
money.
House?
Yeah, and pay money.
At the White House.
It says at the Capitol.
Oh,
At the
really?
U.S. Capitol, you just have to get it approved and pay
worse.
money.
Are
I'm
there
sure they're
guidelines?
not going to raise a flag that somebody hasn't paid to have flown. But
Kim,
it
are there
states that-
guidelines?
But it states it must be, a flag in America. I'm sure it's not made in America, but yeah, I mean, you've got to.
Any flag that you want? Or can it be
It
like,
says the U.S. is about money. You may choose to have your new flag flown over the U.S. Capitol for an additional charge. Flags flown from over the Capitol include certificates, which may be personalized for a particular person, event, or organization.
interesting. I'm curious what they would do if someone wanted the star, the stars and bars, the Confederate flag flown over there.
No.
It has to go through, it has to go through a verification policy, just like our social media site. You have to go through a verification policy before, you can, and you have to pay money. It says for an additional charge.
No, I get the money. Sorry, I'm just curious what criteria. they use to determine which flags can and which flags cannot.
I'm not the approval process, but you can write to them and ask.
Yeah, I doubt they would fly.
You know,
stars and
Lee, why
bars.
don't you see if you can get
That is-
your flag flown for your presidential campaign? I wonder if Trump's flag was flown. We need to look that up.
Interesting.
I'm trying to find some of the other flags. By the way, I mentioned the NBA final, and apparently one of the 2 times, and it was way back in, I think, 1918, that a flag was flown that was from another country was actually the Serbian flag. And that was actually, I think, in like 1918. And like 3 years later, they flowed the flag of France. So that was something that happened. And like I said, I do know that the Joker is of Serbian descent, but that is something, one of the 2 times that a foreign flag has been flown that I was finding in the research that I was seeing.
Okay,
Interesting.
so we burned the flag issue to death.
I did have another question I was
Well,
going to get to. I definitely want to get to something that I know
Oh,
Sasha's
sorry.
going to be very passionate about as well. But I did have a question for you, Lee, and it's another topic before we get back to some of the world issues and everything. But there are 2 things that are going on in the New York area. We've talked about what's going on with Miami and everything, but there is, New York, Philadelphia area. There is a whole question of infrastructure because there was a major highway that collapsed, and some people are wondering about the state of our infrastructure, both there in the Northeast as well as in the other parts of the country. But you live up there in that area, so I was just wondering your thoughts about this I-95 bridge collapse and whether this is something that we need to be concerned about. And I'd love to hear other panelists' thoughts about this.
Yeah, that's a good question. But I just have a general question for everybody: is infrastructure a state problem or a federal problem? So I don't know that it was mentioned in the Constitution. Why are not states and cities responsible for their own bridges and roads? Why is that a federal issue?
Since I used to work for the city attorney's office in Miami Beach, I can answer that question.
Please.
Okay. And it just like the Juris Doctrine, just depends.
I know they want federal dollars, somebody else to pay for it, but that's a separate issue.
Believe it or not, in the United States, there are some roads that are federal roads.
Turnpikes?
and they're the responsibility of
The
federal
entire
government.
interstate system.
The interstate system. There are some roads that are state roads and they're responsibility of the state. There's some that are county that are responsible for local. And then in my community, we even have private roads that are our responsibility. So it depends what road it is, whose responsibility. And to give you an idea, a lot of the lawsuits that you're all paying for is a suit between the city and the county to determine the ownership of the roads because they don't know who owns the road. So when I was at the city attorney's office in Miami Beach, we would sue Dade County, send everybody here a bill as we were fighting over in court the determination of the roads, which it goes back to
Yeah, okay.
argument
Nick, what criteria would there be to determine that
with money.
certain roads should be federal?
It's incredibly
Like I
dumb.
said, the entire interstate system is federal.
But why? Yeah, I heard that, Mark, but why?
Right. The interstate system is federal, but if you look at the facts of that case, it wasn't like the road collapsed. There was a oil tanker that exploded underneath it, buckling the road, causing it to collapse. So it's not a failure of our infrastructure. It's basically a accident by an oil tanker.
Unless I missed something, every time I ask the question, why, you just think it just is. It is what it is.
Well, I
Is there
mean,
any
part of
rationale behind it?
Lee, ironically, part of it, and I know y'all get tired of me bringing it up, and I know Joey brings it up as well, but part of it is actually around building and gentrification and the destruction of the inner cities, because there was definitely some intentional efforts to have interstates built through some very poor neighborhoods and all in that area, because they were trying to make sure that we could all get around from going from north to south and east to west. And a lot of times they went through some very historical neighborhoods and destroyed those neighborhoods. I know that happened here in Durham. That happened in a number of places.
And that was the federal government.
Yeah,
but
that,
what it
that,
was,
happens, that actually happens all over the world. So, you know, you guys aren't unique. But I must say, it doesn't happen to Tovi. The poor people in other countries, they don't get built out. No problems. But I must say, it's
Shaq,
really nice.
Shaq, before you continue, I was shaking my head because I have my son
Are
right
you
here and I'm
interrupting
on
me?
mute.
You don't like when I interrupt you? it's really nice of Pete Buttigieg to actually comment on this, unlike Palestine, where he had absolutely nothing to say at all. So it's really nice for him to have actually said something. Just so happens that this was in Philadelphia, a Democrat area, and Palestine was in a Republican area. So, yeah, very, very interesting, circumstance there, isn't there?
But the road system, the interstate system in the United States was developed because Eisenhower took the huge federal budget that exists in our military defense, which still is huge and bloated today, and he reallocated the funds to the interstate system. So believe it or not, airplanes could land on the interstate to refuel and to take off again. So a lot of stretches of the interstate system in the United States is basically designated as aircraft landing sites. And that's how he allocated the funds. And that's the reason the interstates are owned by the federal government. They were actually done on the Department of Defense budget.
Something seems like an abuse of power, Nick. Am I wrong?
Why is
You want
it
to build airports, build airports.
He's the commander of the United States, similar to Trump was the commander in chief.
Oh, see, commanders in chiefs can't do things wrong.
Had the right to look at these classified documents, whether you like it or not. And so what'll happen is, whether you like it or not, his defense will argue that he had the right to review these classified documents. Now, of course, the other side's going to argue, but wait a minute, he didn't have the right to store it afterwards in his personal residence. And see, that's where the problems come into play. Okay, so
like he stored it in his Corvette.
But then you also have another issue: is wait a minute, are we treating everybody equally? Because Pence had them. Well, what these people are doing with classified documents in their houses, I have no idea. Biden had them, okay, in their personal residence. So unfortunately, the part of the defense will probably be the unequal application of the law. In other words,
how many folks here work for a corporation?
And by the way, this can be tossed out on a federal appeal. So selective enforcement.
Application
and you're out the door. There's a lot of ways to lose this.
Nick, wouldn't that unequal application
is a defense to a charge? You can't walk into court and say, "Look, I've been charged with something, but my next door neighbor did exactly the same thing as me, and he didn't get charged.
Sure.
So therefore, my defense is unequal application of the law." You couldn't do that.
And
I think one of the differences here with Trump is that he was actually asked for those documents, and according to the complaint, the allegation is that he either refused to give them back or obstructed them. Now, with Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and others, Pence and many others, the allegation is that they kept the documents, but they were never actually asked for them back. So the fact is that they were never asked for it back, so therefore they couldn't be charged.
The other allegation is that they cooperated. Hold on a second. The other allegation is they cooperated. That when they were asked, they actually gave them back, or they were.
Well, that's not so true, Mark. Hillary destroyed them.
That's not true, Mark. But the question is about the archivist.
Also,
and the archivist has control over them and is actually entitled to those documents. I think it's a legal question. But it certainly appears to
clarify on the Hillary thing. Just to clarify on the Hillary thing, there's a big difference because we're talking about emails. What Trump did is he actually took documents that had stamped, signed, everything that says this is classified. This is highly classified. This is something that should stay and blah blah blah. What was found out with Hillary is that they were emails. Emails don't have a stamped classified. So she didn't.
No, that's not true.
Say that. No, yes, it is.
Not true.
If you send an email back and forth, the conversation that she had did not have classified listed on there. But what Trump did.
No, you don't know that. Why are you saying that? You don't know that. If you see classified information,
that's what actually came out.
Electronic form, it will actually have a designation on it to tell you what the designation is. And look, I know you're a Democrat. You want to support Hillary no matter what.
You're not listening to what I'm stating.
Mobile phones. She hit them with hammers. She destroyed them.
You're not listening to what I'm stating. You're not listening to what I'm stating.
Even James Comey, when they exonerated her, acknowledged it.
You've just finished that emails don't have a classified
when James Comey pointed, what did James Comey do? He went through her emails on her personal server. those personal server, those emails, many of them were what? About her daughter's wedding.
No. Those she got rid of.
No, listen.
Supposedly.
So this was on her personal, going back on her email back and forth, correct? On those emails going back and forth, in a personal email, it does not have it stated directly in big bold, this is a classified document, like it did the document that Trump took.
How do you know that? If you've got a security
That's what was
clearance and
stated in the Comey, and that's why they couldn't press charges. That's why.
No, I don't believe that's the case.
Toby, how could they know whether or not there was classified information on the server or not if the server was deleted, and all the devices connected to that server were destroyed? How could they know?
Shaquille, hold on a second. I'm just trying to figure this out. I send tons of emails, don't have any kind of White House clearance or anything. But where in an email would you put classified on the email? Would you just write it in the subject
line for one?
Well, and the first line of the email, Mark, I'm not going to reveal to you exactly how your government does it or mine. But what I will say is that in the first line of your email, if you get an email from or something like that, it will actually say in there something like SEC equals, and it will actually
Here's a question. Here's a question.
Now, under normal, can I finish answering the first one, Jacoby?
Okay.
Now, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't see a top secret or eyes only or anything like that. The most you'd ever see on an email is sensitive. However, if you've actually got a classified piece of information in an electronic form, like a PDF or something like that, it will actually have that printed across the document. So the question is, what information was sent? What information was distributed through a private email server outside of the control of the government? Now, look, I'm not defending Trump because this is going to be a legal question for Trump, but I don't see why anybody would want to defend Hillary Clinton on this. Hillary Clinton should not have handled the documents the way that she did. She shouldn't have failed to comply with the government's request for her to answer this information. She should have gotten hammers and smashed mobile telephones.
And she never should have had the email server to begin with.
Again, we're talking about, when we're talking about this, we have to educate our viewers on what the differences were. Right now, you're saying they're the same. That's not true. James Comey, even in his statements, have pointed out it's not true. They're not the same. There are many. For example,
Jacoby, you're right. It's not the same. It's worse.
No, it's not. No,
she was never the president. She had no classification privileges.
Again, you're not. They had a year-long investigation. They had her in front. They had her testify for 11 plus hours. Trump has yet to do any of this. They found nothing. They found her. Wait, Shaq. What they found is that she unintentionally, what Trump has done,
unintentionally smashing cell phones, bleach pit, SIM cards, unintentionally, private server in a basement.
Let me share the screen again. Let's read together because
and also you can't say what Trump has done because a grand jury indictment is a one-way street. There is no defense attorney there to pick apart the arguments of the prosecuting attorney. You only have one person, the attorney, with their evidence that doesn't necessarily reflect all the evidence that's out there, presenting a case in front of a grand jury. There is no. This indictment.
He doesn't need an attorney because he doesn't have any attorneys. He doesn't want to pay $3 million retainer. So that's why. So he'll come there. He will be arraigned, but it's still not a trial. So he's not guilty.
It's not a trial. All he's doing.
Him and Hillary. Hillary is guilty as hell, and she should have been prosecuted. And I think the guillotine would arrange that. All I want to say is just one thing. Let's consider that, there is such element in life like luck. Some people are lucky and some people are not very lucky. So consider that Hillary was very lucky. And Donald Trump, unlike Hillary, is not very lucky. He's got in the wrong place, in the wrong time, and he's just not a lucky guy. What can you say about it?
But he's
Hey, Nick, hold on a second. I do have a question to ask everybody. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Nick. I got a quick question to ask everybody. Because how many private servers are there in the whole area of the Capitol? Because I'm imagining there are tons of private servers, including some that are federal and other places, because there are a number of organizations and a number of other things that are going on. So how many private servers actually exist?
By definition, Mark, if it's a federal server, it's not private. Sasha,
Also,
I don't actually
do
think that this
realize-
is going to make much of a difference if he's prosecuted, if he's convicted, or he's not, because it seems, from what I'm observing, from the rhetoric I'm hearing on both sides, is that the Democrats say this is totally different to Hillary, it's totally different to all the others. Donald Trump's a terrible, horrible person, as we know he is, and he's like Hitler, and anything that happens to him is fair game. The other side, his supporters are like, and most Republicans and a lot of independents are saying this looks like a political hit job.
Right.
They're just going after him for over and over and over and over again, and they should leave him alone. It looks political, and I don't think that those sides are going to budge. I think you've still got the same division that you had 2 years ago, that you had 4 years ago. Nothing's really changed. He's got his supporters. They're not going to waver. They're not going to change their mind off that point. And he's got his people that don't like him, like Tovey, who are going to never, ever agree with anything that he does.
Shaquille, I want you to look.
Getting
Shaquille,
back to the education portion,
yeah.
again, of
get
the
back to intent.
the 30,000.
Jacoby,
You're trying to fit it
audience.
No, I'm trying to point out the educated side
group
here.
of idiots that just need you to come along and educate them and talk down to them.
I'm not talking to you, Shaq. I said our viewers. Stop taking
I
things
just
so
said-
personal. If your panties are that much in a wad, please be
Yep.
quiet. So,
Jacoby,
what did
Jacoby,
Clinton
if
do?
you listened to what I
Of
said,
the-
I said our audience is not
Can we get back to?
uneducated.
Let me finish, Shaq.
Yeah, please
On
continue
this
to
AP
sell their-
document,
sell what-
which was talking about what both Clinton did and what Trump did. What Comey and actually that year-long investigation, when they pointed out the 30,000 emails turned over by Clinton's representatives, the FBI said of 110 emails in the 52 email chains were found to have classified information. So in that email chain back and forward, what they're saying is that there was classified, which she may not have known, or which she may not have realized, or not had this big bold letter. So that's what they're saying there. The difference is, again, after the year-long, the FBI closed out the investigation on July 2016, finding that Clinton did not intend to break the law, which is what
Jacoby, that's not an element of the crime. Intent is irrelevant.
By the way, that's
intent
the reason
is
how
very
people
relevant.
want. But
No, it's not.
Intent is very relevant.
Not in this case, not for classified.
Intent is
You
relevant.
just exonerated Trump, Jacoby. Thank you very much.
No, I did not.
Here's
Because
how
you're not
Trump's gonna
listening, Nick.
walk.
You stopped
Here's
right
how
there
Trump's
when I
gonna
talk
walk.
about.
He's going to say,
No,
I never had intent to violate any laws.
Again,
Like,
there, right there. Hold on, Nick. What you just said, is going to be their
Just
defense.
exonerated him.
I agree. That's going to be their defense, which points to Lee. Lee, yes, intent is very important in this
Right.
because
Jacoby?
intent is the whole thing.
Jacoby, Nick, has there ever been a criminal in the history of the world that said before a judge, I intended to break the law?
Lee, in
Yes, Your
manslaughter,
Honor.
is there
I knew what I was
accidental
doing.
manslaughter?
He intended.
Yeah, yes, there is.
Hey, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Didn't one just die that admitted that he knew he was
No,
wrong when
he's
he
gonna say he had no
committed the
intent
crime?
to
Because
violate
Ted
any law.
Kaczynski just
And he
recently
walked.
died, apparently of an apparent
Nick,
suicide.
walked with
But
the
as I
judge.
recall that case,
Nick,
didn't he admit that he did
as-
was wrong?
Case
Nick,
closed.
As a
Thanks.
lawyer, does intent matter?
Yeah.
Not in this case, Nick.
Why?
It's
Matter-
Jacoby.
No, the lawyer
Yes.
just told you yes. The man is in the
It's not an
profession.
element of
Now,
this.
once again, Jacoby, you are
and
once
that's the
again.
reason he'll walk.
He just pointed
Well,
out
he'll
to you
walk.
previously that,
He'll say,
that
"I know
intent is
intent
not
to
actually an
violate
element of
laws."
the crime in general. You can still
Time
be
out.
prosecuted for
He may
something
even
without
take the
intent. Then you ask him a question. Then you ask him a question about whether, very specific, does intent matter? Yes, that can enhance your charges, and you just take that snippet and run with it. And then you try to tell everyone else when they don't agree with you,
No.
or you're not listening.
I asked a lawyer, Does intent matter? The lawyer said what?
Jacoby,
What
I've
did
just
the
answered that.
lawyers
Jacoby,
say?
I just addressed that. Jacoby, you obviously weren't listening to me because I just addressed what
What
Nick
did
said.
the lawyers say? The lawyer said intent matters. So just as in this case here, yes, their defense, which I completely agree with Nick, is that they're going to try and say it was unintentional. That's the big to do. And the problem is with Trump, because the actual files had listed on there and were highlighted as top secret, and he knew they were top secret, and he took them anyway, according to the actual evidence that is put out there that shows his intent. So intent is the whole crux of the case. So we cannot say that intent does not matter. And that is a big difference in the whole Hillary. That is basically the crux of the case in the Clinton case, in the Pence case, in the Biden case, all these individuals that actually took their documents when they helped or when they were asked, they gave their stuff back.
Jacoby, but
Clinton would
he
be
has
the only
one
argument.
very interesting defense. He could say that, yes, he knew that they're classified. He couldn't say otherwise, right? Yet he needed these documents to be able to sell them so he could hire lawyers to defend him afterwards. So it was purely innocent transactional situation from Trump's point of view. That's all.
It doesn't matter. It's that intent part. If he took them, even though he wanted to hire lawyers to defend him, well, that means you must have did a crime, and there's an intent to take those. So you're hiding something, or you're admitting guilt right there.
Anybody who hires a lawyer must have committed a crime. I mean, you must be absolutely enthralled with Justice Scalia's interpretation of the Fifth Amendment, I must say.
Speaking of crime and everything, I did
Not
have a
sure
quick
the
question
relevance
for
of what you're
Lee.
saying.
Hold on a second. I had a quick question for Lee, and this is just, we're going to get off that topic for a second. We'll come back to it tomorrow and everything. But you're there in New York. So what's going on with the New York crime situation and the New York police? Because apparently they couldn't hold the commissioner for a long time. And I know that Mayor Adams is there, but apparently the New York police commissioner, Miss Keechant Seal, has stepped down after only been on the job for a year and a half. So I don't know how much you can actually get accomplished in a year and a half in that very difficult job. But I didn't know if you had any news about the reason.
I saw that in the news. I'm not sure what that's about. It could be something personal. It could be she got retirement age. I have no idea.
Okay, well, I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that and anything along those lines. And the other thing, I know sometimes we talk about Texas and what goes on with the migrants, but apparently there's also some other things that are escaping in Texas as well, because apparently the fish are escaping. So I'm sure the climate change people will be glad to know that, because there are apparently tens of thousands of dead fish on the Texas beaches, and that may be not exactly making that part of Texas, the beach area, exactly a booming area for tourism and all in that space. So definitely, I don't know that I'd be wanting that many dead fish on a tourist area of Texas, but apparently they're just washing up there. So I don't know if anybody is a climate person or have any idea why the fish are trying to escape into Texas.
See, we can talk about fish dying in Texas or Donald Trump. What's more exciting? Okay.
Donald Trump was more exciting, but I was actually going to get to the other thing that is exciting that is getting ready to come up on our news. I was just trying to bring some light on this
the media
thing and everything. And by the way, they said it was the heat
all
wave.
the way
They
through
said
the
it was the heat
primary.
wave that caused the fishes dying. So that's why I brought up the climate change. And
Actually, here's one for you, Nick. More exciting. The top two Republican candidates at their supporters, or they're at different rallies, have and continue to display Nazi flags.
Oh, really? Who are these wonderful?
DeSantis had Nazi flags at his.
Is the American flag
supporters-
flying? Hey, Toby, here's my question: is the American flag flying higher or lower than these Nazi flags? That's all.
I don't know. At those, we may have a
have to check that
DeSantis
out.
flag super high and a Trump
Because
flag
you're
super
gonna
high.
fly-
Jadovi, I heard what you said. I just one question, Jadovi. Were those FBI employees undercover?
Than the Nazi flags.
Huh?
Were those FBI employees undercover at those rallies?
Doubtful.
Why is it doubtful? They're showing up everywhere else.
No, they're not. Now you're throwing in conspiracy theories.
I'm just showing things that were in the news that have been proven.
No, that's a conspiracy.
Jatovia and Lee, hold on a second. If you look at our new social media site, I did post a couple of things on there that talk about a historical part that went on in the past, because I'm not sure that the Proud Boys, as well as some of the other ones, may not be dealing with their own versions of COINTELPRO. So I'm not going to say that the FBI and other agencies have not been involved in some of these actions against things that they don't necessarily support. So I hear where you're going, Lee, and everything. So like I said, that was something that was brought up, and I brought up, and I also brought this notion of the independent parties, because we were talking about the independent parties and this independent voice, and we're acting like this is something new. Lenora Fulani was actually a candidate 30 years ago on all 50 states and everything. So yeah, she was running this independent thing, and she and a co-founder actually created the organization independentvoting.org, which actually highlights some of the independent voters out there and all in that space. So it is not a new conversation, either the COINTELPRO stuff or the independent voting stuff, because it has been out there for years. I don't know that none of them have been, well, COINTELPRO might have been successful, but not necessarily the aspect of the independent voting.
Well, Mark, I'm running a poll right now on LinkedIn. Your choice,
You're doing polls also?
your choice is Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or anyone else. Anyone else is right now leading Joe Biden and Donald Trump. To give you an idea, the third party could come in and just swoop and take the whole election because people are tired of Trump and Biden. By the way, Biden is not winning against anybody. Any Republican I throw against Biden, Biden will lose.
But
So,
just
bad news for
Nick,
those-
Steve Walker, remember that?
Now remember, in
Lenora
terms
Fulani,
At least
there were a
on
number of
LinkedIn,
independents that have been
yeah,
out there for a while. I just don't know that we haven't got
Remember
past that
when, I
A
think
versus
when-
B
when,
kind of conversation.
rigged election.
remember right now, any
Did you want to
poll-
correct? Did you want to correct the
Oh, it's
record
cool.
about that?
I'm just letting you
DeSantis
know
thing,
what's
by the
going
way?
on, dude.
You
You
said
know,
it
I'm
happened at one of
saying,
his
Nick,
rallies.
with
You want
the
to correct
polls
where it
up-
actually happened out in front of Disney, right? It didn't happen at one of his rallies. Do you just want to correct that, or is that bit of misinformation just slides
Oh,
through? to the media?
DeSantis would beat Biden 2-1, and
Yeah.
DeSantis would also beat Trump.
my apologies. The Nazi flag and DeSantis flag were flown together outside of Disney.
DeSantis has his own flag.
So what are you trying to suggest to show me that this is a Republican idea? That DeSantis sitting there going, "Oh, yay, this is going to be great for my campaign if some of my lunatic supporters go and
No, I'm
wave
just
Nazi
stating
flags
that
out
these
around Disney." Is
individuals,
that what you're suggesting?
just stating that these individuals, which do exist, which are voting Republican and fighting for both of the
there's
Nazi
no-
candidates,
There's a
are
whole group of
still
Democrats who are just
are
burn the
there.
American
I'm
flag
saying
protests.
they're there.
So
They aren't the majority of that party and aren't the majority of
No, they're
that
not.
base, but they
They're
are
minority.
in that base.
They're there.
what about your side of politics who goes and burns American flags? Anything to say about that? That doesn't matter. That's okay. Fair enough. It's okay. Dick Johnson says it's
Who
okay.
burned the American flag?
Oh no! You've never seen the American flag being burned. Never
No,
heard of
he wasn't
Antifa.
there during the Vietnam War.
No, I'm just asking. I just showed you a link directly to where
No,
the.
I don't know. I must.
But hold on,
making
chat.
up.
You just bring up.
People on the
No,
left,
chat.
they never
Let's
said
do
that.
this. Let's do this. Let's do it the right way. I gave you facts.
I know your way.
You give me facts. Give me a link.
Jacoby,
Give me a link. Give me proof.
You're
Give me
right.
something.
Jacoby,
And we'll talk about it.
right.
That's what we
No,
do.
Jacoby,
That's what we do.
Jacoby, I'm not going to argue with an idiot. You're right.
I
I'm
know
wrong.
you're not going to argue with an idiot. You got your panties in a bunch again. So come on, man. Do you?
I don't
Do
have my
you?
pants
It's okay.
in a bunch at all, man.
There we go. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee.
You're welcome.
There we go. That's all I asked. Okay. DC protesters burn American flag. Chant America was never great.
You already know.
Oh,
No, Sasha is
We
actually
have to-
correct. It's time for us to get over to his show so we can learn more about what's going on in Ukraine and that war. And I did mention some of that at the beginning, but we do have Ukraine, Russia, and China. So it's time for us to actually wrap this lively discussion. And I know we'll have another lively one tomorrow. We actually do have a religious guest on tomorrow as well. So we have a religious guest that will be coming in talking about what he's doing in Chicago around the homeless area and also around health as well. might be more health than homeless. But right now, let's get on out of here, and we'll have our guest, Reverend Percy, on tomorrow. At least he's the one that is scheduled in that space. So we'll have some other lively discussion, and probably only do like the first 20 or 30 minutes with him, and then go into the rest of our lovely discussion.